the highlight of Parshat Yisro, very small parsha, is clearly the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 utterances, the experience of Mamad Har Sinai, the experience where we heard Hashem's voice directly emanating from heaven onto earth. I'd like to examine, Mirz Hashem, together the first of these utterances, and only the first part of the first utterance, because each part deserves its own study in its own right. So we have the beginning of Parakaf. Hashem spoke all these statements saying, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Asher Tosicha Me'eretz Yitzrayim, Mibeit Avadim. I am Hashem, your God, who has taken you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. So clearly, the very famous question that's asked of why does the Kadosh Baruch Hu introduce himself as the God who has taken us out of Egypt, not through the God who has created heaven and earth? And that's a study in its own right, but not for today. I want to look at Mirz Hashem just at the beginning of the pasuk. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem, your God. Just that one statement. This statement is really the quintessential statement of faith, and as we will see, this is a statement that we need to be working on and involved with every single day of our lives. There's a very interesting question that's found in the Rishonim, and that question is this a mitzvah or not? Is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God, is this a mitzvah or not? We have the statement of the Baal Halachos Gedolos in the Arrow and 3, who contends that belief in God is not an independent mitzvah, but rather a fundamental prerequisite to Torah observance. He explains that it would be futile to command man to believe in God because the very concept of God-given commandments presupposes that there's a commander. It follows that if someone does not believe in God, he would not feel more inclined to believe if belief in God were an explicit mitzvah. Man cannot be commanded into believing that there's a commander. He must arrive at this realization independently. Only then will the concept of a commandment being meaningful to him. For this reason, Torah does not express the obligation to believe in God in the Jewish people of an explicit commandment. So according to the Baal Halachos Gedolos, I am Hashem your God is a statement, it is not a commandment. And indeed, as we'll see, it's not written in the form of commandment. It is like, which is found in the Medrash in source number 2, that when a king comes into a land and says, observe my commandments, there presupposes that they're going to accept his sovereignty. So Anochi Hashem Elokecha is for us to work on, and then once we've worked on that, we can then accept the commandments God gives us. The Rambam Maimonides differs with this approach, the squiggly line in 3. He explains that theoretical belief in God cannot exist independent of mitzvah observance. Belief that does not find expression in the realm of action remains ephemeral. So according to the Rambam, this is a mitzvah. Obviously, as Rav Wolfson points out in source number 4, this is not the usual language of a command. Grammatically, it's a simple declarative statement with no word that directly tells us to perform an action or even to think a particular thought. Nevertheless, the Rambam counts this mitzvah of Emuna as one of the Taryag mitzvahs, and in fact, it is mitzvah number 1. So, question that we need to address today is the following question. How do we understand? If we understand the Baal Halachos Gedolos, that is just a prerequisite, granted. But if we understand that the Rambam is saying that this is a mitzvah to believe in Hashem, A, how can you command somebody to believe in God? And B, does that, as we saw, not presuppose that there is somebody commanding you? So you have to almost, the catch-22, believe in God in order to be able to accept upon yourself this belief in God. So how do we understand this? So this is a question that I'd like to try to deal with on one level today. Obviously there are many approaches. How do we understand the Shita of the Rambam that this is a mitzvah? And then Based on this shita, this understanding, I'd like to work primarily today in exploring this approach, how practically we can concretize this and implement this for our lives. And because this is so theoretical and so esoterical, I think B'dafka, and at the same time so important, I think B'dafka we have to spend more time on focusing on the practical applications for our lives. The approach I'd like to take is based on Rav Wolfson in the Sefer Wellsprings of Faith, where he notes the following on the next source 5, that there are two types of knowledge. There's something called acquired knowledge, which throughout our lives we are constantly acquiring new knowledge. We read a book, for example, we gain information from the printed page. In today's day and age it would be, a Kindle, but it's the same idea. It is knowledge that we did not have before,